The biggest idea behind wanting to buy a home was to begin generating wealth for ourselves. I mean, it's one of the clearest examples of how a family can do that or reliably do that.
We have friends in the area who we had spent some time with, and we fell in love with Texas, and then this area specifically, and we were not content where we were before and wanted a change, and we took a leap of faith and moved to Texas and to New Braunfels.
My wife and I attended a church in the Garden Ridge, Schertz area. It's about 15-20 minutes south of New Braunfels. We kind of started talking about attending church up here, and as God would have it, our church in Garden Ridge decided they were going to plant a church up here, and Patrick and Mackenzie were in that initial group that came up to help us plant a new church in New Braunfels.
Matt is a part of the church we attend, and being first-time home buyers, it was important for us to use someone who we knew and who we trusted, and Matt fit that criteria for us, so we knew we wanted to work with him.
We talked with Matt about a year and a half before we ultimately put money down on a house, and so we talked through some of the risks in buying a home, buying a new home, what to expect, how long it takes you to kind of typically see any sort of equity from a purchase and things like that. So we leaned very heavily on Matt's advice and kind of making it through that, in thinking in terms of an investment in a way of generating wealth for ourselves. We want to make sure that we're not just buying for us long term, because it isn't necessarily long term, but we're thinking in terms of how we can maximize our money and time spent here.
One of the things that was most important for them was getting in at the time that we did, was closing the loan, early in the year. So again, with COVID, every couple of months, these new builds were having increased lumber costs. And so we knew we were up against, their deadline to have a home and find some place to live.
We certainly couldn't have anticipated what's happened in the last year and a half, but it turns out when we bought was kind of more crucial than ever.
Yeah, they were obviously first-time home buyers, young married couple, had just moved from East Coast to Texas, and so they were in the midst of a lot of life change. We were doing their loan in the midst of COVID, and for many lenders, our world was made even more complicated. Every scenario with a self-employed borrower during COVID was treated on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, we had a complete moment of panic. We were pretty late in the process, and it seemed like we'd been getting good news, or at least affirmatives moving forward. And then all of a sudden, we just hit this wall, and it was as if all this progress had been undone.
We didn't know up front what documentation was going to be needed or provided, because every one of these was not only new to us, but it was new to the underwriter as well, and how to treat it. We were able to make the numbers work, but there was a time in there that really had everybody a little bit nervous.
And while we did know Matt for some amount of time, we're not college friends or high school friends. We didn't grow up together, so we still have a pretty limited relationship, but Matt treated me like I was, a high school friend or a childhood friend. He was actually on vacation, I think in Colorado.
Yeah, I remember I was actually on a ski lift with my kids on the way up the mountain, and on my way up, I get a text message from one of the team members back here, and they said, hey, we may have hit a little bit of a snag with the Hills file. When I got back down, I'd sent just a quick note to the team, hey, I'm out with my family, but once we get back and I can get the kids to bed, later this evening, let me jump in and see if we can work on it.
I remember he told me, let me put my kids, get my kids to bed, let me finish up my evening, and then I'll jump on it. And I think it was 11:30 at night, and he was working on stuff to make sure that we had things submitted and could get the approvals we needed.
So it was just one of those times. I don't make a habit of, working late nights or, working on vacation, but I think all of us know that there's those times when you have to dive in, and that was one.
We are the Hills, and we loved working with the Wood Group of Fairway.